The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, MorrisMediaLive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. A poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. A poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. Bobby sang the silent ear. Bobby sang at my silence. Bobby sang the black onyx of the tie-dye moccasins of Yoruba. Bobby sang the black jewel sword of Cobb of Morning. Bobby sang the mint julep of the red clay of Georgia, sang the toe taps aqua shoes of Brother Hines. Bobby sang the silent ear, sang the turntable line. Bobby sang the force of Everson, sunshine, trimming rainfall, singing the secret war pit of the twisted line, singing the naked wide-eyed look of Jupiter. Bobby sang, you. A poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken Bobby flavor. A poem could be safer, but the mix is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken Bobby flavor. Poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the chicken body flavor.
Ron Allen. Welcome to the Qumran Report. May the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. My name is Melvin Ishmael Johnson, coming at you live from Morris Media Studio. Our call-in number is 1-323-293-3375. Now, this week on the Qumran Report, our topic is a conversation about Lynn Manning, award-winning poet, playwright, and actor, with the cast from the new world premiere play about Lynn Manning entitled Voice from the Village. Written and directed by yours truly, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, and performed by a talented ensemble of actors who is my in-studio guest. But first, I would like to announce the world premiere of my play about Lynn Manning entitled Voice from the Village. The play is being performed this February the 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2019, Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock, Sunday at 3 p.m. at the New American Theater, 1312 North Wilton Place, Hollywood, California, 90028. For ticket information, brownpapertickets.com. Now, I just want to read a little about Lynn Manning before we get into our in-studio guests here. The late Lynn Manning is co-founder and artistic director of Watts Village Theater Company. He is also an award-winning poet, playwright, actor, and former world champion of blind judo. He accomplished all of this after being shot and blinded by a stranger in a bar in Hollywood at age 23. In 1996, Lynn co-founded the Watts Village Theater Company in partnership with the late actor and community activist Quentin Drew. The company develops and produces new plays of relevance to the underserved Afro-Latino community of Watts in South Los Angeles. I'm delighted to have with us in the studio the cast from the play about Lynn, Voice from the Village. Welcome to the Qumran Report.
Thank you, Melvin.
Thank you.
So let's go around the table. First, introduce yourself. Tell us what part you're playing. Let's start over here with Charlotte.
All right. I'm Charlotte Evelyn Williams, and I have the privilege of playing Maria Osodi.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm Jonathan Wynn, and I have the privilege of playing Quentin Drew.
I'm Marvin Gaye. I have the privilege and honor of playing my friend Lynn Manning.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we get into the discussion, we want to talk a little about your background, how you got off into acting as an artist, etc., like that.
Okay, yes. I started acting at the age of 7. I started kind of doing church plays, playing different biblical characters in my church, and I really just had a love for it and wanted to continue to pursue it. And so my mom got me in I did some background for a little bit, and then I went to a middle school for performing arts, a high school for performing arts, and I just continued to do theater even throughout college, and it's literally all I know and love.
Okay.
Well, myself, I played football, and when I was in college, I just kind of was not sure just where I wanted to be in life and what direction I wanted to go in, and even though I was there to play football, I just I wasn't focused, and one day I found myself. And I went to see this. My mother told me to meet her at this theater, this movie house in Hollywood, and it just something hit my heart. And I found out and knew what I was. Changed my college major to a theater arts major, quit playing football, and then I just went full-time into the theater, studied dance, music, went to New York, came back here and worked a little, worked in New York, and, I just found out, like anything in life, when you take your time and listen to your heart, it never lies to you. And you see what your true identity is. And I found that out and just kept on going, and several years ago, met Melvin Ishmael Johnson and his partner Bill White, and had an opportunity to work with these guys and do several very, very strong plays and with them, and it's just been a lot of fun. And then this opportunity came to play the partner of Lynn Manning, which is Quentin Drew, in Voice from the Village. So we're all very, very excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I not to be outdone, I played tennis. Okay, I did play one game of football, junior varsity. We lost 26-0, and the coach decided to give up the idea of junior varsity football in high school. I got a late start professionally in the game of theater. I was 50 years old, and I stumbled into the game playing tennis. One of the guys out there said he had a buddy who was casting director for extras, and they needed 25 more black guys to be in this movie that was coming to town in Washington, D.C. Movie turned out to be Contact with Jodie Foster, and made $52.70 that day. The minimum wage was $5.27 an hour. Coldest day I'd ever experienced in D.C., and but I got the bug, you know. I said, wow, this is amazing how they do this. You make this make-believe look real, you know. And I ended up in another movie background, Deep Impact, with Morgan Freeman. Everybody's trying to get out of D.C. before the media falls. And I was definitely in then. That was my start. A late start, so I'm running fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw you in a Christmas movie lately. Didn't I see you in a movie last year? But okay. But anyway,
I forget.
let's talk about before we talk about a little about Lynn. Since you playing Lynn, and what's the biggest challenge in playing a character like Lynn?
The biggest challenge was the biggest attraction. I get to stretch as an artist to play somebody blind, and I had the privilege of knowing Lynn personally, socially, and professionally. I was in a piece that he did and wrote for the Watts Village Theater Company, where I played Langston Hughes' father, and I was amazed at how he managed the whole cast, even though he couldn't see us, and the process of his writing that piece, he involved us all, with things like, okay, you're his father, what would a father say here?
He was the director also?
He was a director also. And
the Langston Hughes project.
Yeah. I forget the exact name of that piece, but we performed it at the California African American Museum as a reading, a dramatic reading. About 9-10 years ago now. Yeah. So the biggest challenge for me is to be able to pull off playing as though I'm blind, and hopefully it will be believable.
And then the thing I noticed about Lynn when I first met him and when I had him on the radio show is he had a unique voice. I mean, I haven't heard too many of them. And in a way, we're talking about Maria. I always wonder that's the reason that Maria had that distinct dialect also. How about you, Joseph? What was the biggest challenge in playing a character like Quentin Drew?
Well, when I first was told I was going to play the character, went on the computer and found very little about Quentin Drew. And then the director, Melvin, sent me this information. It was called A Man for All Seasons. And it highlighted Quentin Drew as this visionary in the community there. And such a visionary to the point where he was so focused on wanting to uplift the community of Watts and the people there, African Americans and Latinos, and the youth, and found out that he worked with gang members, he worked on the council there, and just listening to my own feelings and gut when I read this information on Quentin Drew, read between the lines and picked up some golden pieces of information about this guy. And it was interesting tonight coming into the radio studio here because the lady that runs the studio,
the poetess,
beg your pardon?
Felicia.
She knew Quentin Drew personally, and she gave some very, very fine insight into this guy's heart and his soul. And everything she said, yes, that's what I've been leaning on, because in this piece, in this play that Melvin wrote, Quentin was this visionary. He really drafted Lynn Manning into the fold of let's get this theater going here. Let's uplift this community in the performing arts, in poetry, in drama. And he was so focused into it that you could see that he really was a pioneer, Quentin Drew. And so my heart just is wrapped around this guy now, and I just hope that I can deliver some beauty about this guy's soul.
And the thing that really stands out in my mind, and when I was doing all this research, it really bothered me that the brothers seemed like they had forgot about him, who had contributed so much. And then I started thinking, I said, man, you know what? Lynn passed in 2015, and it's 2019, and they still don't appreciate how brilliant this brother was as an artist. Probably one of, I'm speaking of Lynn now, it's probably one of the most important artists that you had come up out of here from Los Angeles and focus on writing and telling the stories about Los Angeles, because he wrote 19 plays, and all of his plays centered on that. And I kept thinking about it. I say, wow, well, I don't think the thing is going to happen to Lynn because he had become such an international figure and was out there. But it's hard for me to understand how could the Watts community forget this brother who was also on the neighborhood council. He's involved with gangs, working over there with Jordan Downs, and we know that's the center point of
Speaking of Lynn or Quentin?
Of Quentin.
Quentin Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then and I researched so much, and I found this one article, and I couldn't understand. This brother that grew up here in Watts. What's happening here where people can forget you so quick as an artist?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to you, it's all going to come to life. Along with Maria.
Yes.
So let's talk about Maria Shoty.
Yes.
A minute, and Extent Theater Come. Let's talk about that. What was the biggest challenge in portraying this particular role?
Yes, well, I have to agree with Marvin. The biggest challenge was also the biggest attraction. It was also very exciting because Maria is from the UK. She's from England. And so my biggest challenge was really authentically being able to speak the dialect and the accent, her lovely English accent, but also still making sure that I'm understood by the audience, because sometimes, listening to her speak, it is hard to hear to the ear. It's like, oh, wait, what did she say? I have to play that back because her accent is so strong. And I wanted to definitely have that accent down where I sound like I'm authentically from the UK, but where the audience can still understand me. So finding that balance. But she has been so much fun to explore. Her and Lynn's scenes are just the joy, especially having them to listen to and use as we go through our process. She's so energetic and warm from videos that I've seen, similar to myself, very warm. So yeah, it's honestly been a joy.
So, in talking about that, what is your approach? I'm gonna ask all the actors this: what is your approach in getting into a role? When a director or someone casting agent give you a script, whether it's film, is it different on how you approach film and how you approach theater? I mean, you as an individual artist, what's your approach?
What's my approach?
How do you start?
It doesn't vary for me as far as the medium that it is, whether it's film or TV. My process generally is the same. However, for this particular piece, it was different because she is a living being. So I actually had footage to watch and material to research and see her in action, which you don't get that a lot from shows, especially if you're creating a new character from scratch, So for this role, I watched every video that I possibly could, listened to all the audio that I could get on her, of her talking, of her, how she talks, what behavior patterns that she uses when she talks, was definitely my foundation for her.
In terms of...
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Jonathan? How you get into
sure, for
your
myself,
process?
My process is reading the script more than one time.
Oh, yes.
Reading it more than twice. Reading it more than 3 times. And leaving all these pores of my creativity open as I'm reading. And as I read it, things unfold to my consciousness. And as they unfold, I take them in. And maybe by the second time after I read it, or the third time, I'll start making some notes. And then I'll just take things in. Whatever comes into my consciousness, I'll just be true to it. and I'll go with those. Those are choices that I make. And the only times that I will change those choices if the director or the writer will say something to me, then I'll flip. I'll change gears. I'll make another turn. But other than that, most choices are kind of like being made. And like for me, and I mentioned this to you before, Melvin, creating a character for me is like an artist painting a picture on a canvas. You know, or a sculpture, or you put your hands into the clay, and the clay tells you what it wants to be, what it wants to do. And it's the same thing with a character. And I love playing different characters. I'm not, Melvin knows me, and I don't get into, this is the way this is my image, or this. I want to be true to the part. And I make that effort. But I love just being free with my creativity and trusting myself to go with that flow. And whatever comes, let it come. And just try to be honest, not to rebuke myself or to critique myself. Just let it go and let the feedback come from the director, writer, whatever. Now I'll take thoughts in from my fellow actors, and but I just want to be true to what I feel. But the more I read it, the more I read that story or that script, more and more things unfold. And the lines, it's so interesting. Even when memorizing lines, the more you read that script, I found for myself, the lines start unfolding. They start taking place in your consciousness. And it's so interesting because, of course, you got to go back and you read. But that's part of the process of the actor, is memorizing those lines, But the more you read it, and the more your thought is open to the storyline and to those characters, it is so interesting how the lines start taking a place in your thinking, in your thought.
And you're already memorizing the lines.
You're already memorizing,
right? Without
you're doing it without
to do it,
forcing yourself,
right?
And then you can go over and you do whatever your technique is. But that's how it unfolds for me, painting that picture.
The great real king of comedy was a brother named Bert Williams, right? He was real. He developed all your early techniques.
Andy, wasn't he on
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy, the fat one.
Well, no, Bert came on a little earlier. Yeah, but I know the one you're talking about.
Wasn't that Williams too? Yeah. Okay.
But Bert was.
He was played blackface
early in the 20s. They developed the Williams and Walker company. Right. And they asked him. He said the aim and objective of art is to achieve naturalness. And then he was such a great comedian, pantomimes and all. A lot of stuff you saw the comedian Red Skelton used to do, got it straight from Bert Williams. See, Bert Williams is the one that used to do it in blackface, used to do that early blackface thing. And then he said that one of his secrets was he called it eavesdropping on Mother Nature. He would get on buses and stuff and just observe characters, and then he would bring that into his routine. So, Amon, what's your process? How do you get into a role? Is it different from film, the way you get into film and the way you get into theater?
It's pretty much the same, with a slight difference for theater, to exaggerate it a little more for theater. But I go for the voice first. When I read through, I let the dialogue, the words, pull from me naturally what Marvin feels like. That feels like, Is that an angry scene? I mean, would I say that seriously? So I go for the voice first, and I also will change it as I go along further. But first, I want to get the voice of the character, and the process that follows is, once I do that, I start to record all of the script with all the characters that I'm interacting with. I do their part, I do my part, and then I go back and redo that again, just doing other characters' parts and leaving mine. So I have the timing of my saying it, but I don't say it. I want it to be soft there. So when I play that part back, I can then be able to work with Charlotte's character and answer her. You know, when the void comes after I've said your lines, then I will say mine, and that's a process I use. I write on cards the whole thing. That again, the writing for me further gives me a layer of cement for those lines. And I share this gladly because when I got started, I would ask other actors, "How do you remember all these lines?" You know, and you know, people, a lot of people won't tell you their process. You know, because I guess they think they're not going to get any work. You know, if they tell you their secret,
right? They're friendly.
Well,
you know,
well, amazing thing of the great actor Marlon Brando. You know, when you read about, you walk into his pad, and he have little notes and stuff all throughout his pad on how you pick it up. What you were saying? You was getting ready to say something?
Yeah, I mean, he also had an earphone in it. A lot of people didn't know. Marlon Brando, I read, he was getting his lines fed to him, you know. But that's a process pretty much for me. And then I try to just be comfortable because somebody told me about 22 years ago when I started, if it looks like acting, it's bad acting.
Right.
You know, so you go for the natural. Yeah.
Well, how about surprises? What's the biggest surprises you got so far in playing your role? Let's start talking about Maria. Any surprises so far?
Any surprises? I'm not sure. I know how to.
Or discoveries? They call them discoveries.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Well, yes. I mean, really a lot of the relationship building with Lynn has been so much fun to explore because on the surface of our scenes, yes, we're friends. Yes, you know, we know from the video that, you know, you showed us from they're actually doing the interview. They're great friends, but they have a really good rapport. And exploring that relationship with Lynn has been a really fun discovery for me. And of course, like not taking it to another level that's past friends, but I believe that Maria had a different love for Lynn and vice versa. You know, they were kind of soulmates in a way. And that's been really, really fun to explore and has definitely surprised me. But it's made it fun. A good surprise.
How did you explore the concept of blindness? The fact that, did you experiment with that?
Yes.
In terms of,
yes, and that was tough because similar to what Marvin was saying, being blind, but not looking like I'm playing a blind person, being that. But Maria, when you watch her, she doesn't look like she's blind. She doesn't look like she's talking to you. You know, she's connecting with you. And so it was finding that balance of, okay, yes, I'm blind. And yes, when I stand up, I need my stick here. And, you know, yes, some things are maybe blurry for me. But when she's having conversations with someone that's right next to her, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know that she was blind. So finding that balance, it's been a balance. And I think Marvin mentioned it earlier, how writing his lines down was influential for him. And for me, it's journaling, just journaling everything from the relationship I had with you.
It's what?
Journaling. Just writing. I just literally just free
like
write.
Keeping a journal.
Yeah, just keeping a journal off of Maria, like in her, from her point of view, you know, how I feel about Lynn, how I feel when he says this. Why do I say that? And his response to, you know, the question that he asked me or anything, just literally just free writing, not judging it, not, you know, trying to get into another level, just getting it out there and seeing how that helps my character building. But our dynamic has definitely been a surprise, but a fun discovery to explore.
How about you Marvin? Well, let me. I want Marvin to touch on the blindness thing. The fact that you're playing a blind character. It's different from Quentin. And because, and I watched that in rehearsal to see did that come out in any way. The fact that one was a sighted character and the other one was a blind character. But how did you work that into your process in developing this character?
I'm still evolving. But I was fortunate through another mutual friend of Lynn and mine to get Lynn's actual cane. So I'm working with the cane that Lynn Manning used.
Thanks to our partner, John Freeland Jr.
Thanks to our good friend, cool. John Freeland Jr. Yes. And so I'm spending a lot of time around the apartment tapping and walking and bumping into my stuff until I can use the cane properly to make sure that I know where the stuff is, because I have my eyes closed moving around. Shall I let this cat out the bag? In the next day or so, it is my intent to hit the streets blind.
Wow.
And so that I can really get the feel.
Do you want me to go with you? I'll go with you.
Can I put my hand on your shoulder? No. I'm going to use my cane, walk around the neighborhood, and just, do that. And it's going to freak some people out, because
it's freaking me out. We open Friday.
If I go and do it in another area, I'm going to drive there. And then when I get out, I'm going to put the cane on.
What? Was he just driving?
Yeah. So that's how I'm working with it, to get as close to it as possible. I pray it doesn't happen, because I have had thoughts before I ran into this project. Please, Lord, don't let me go blind at this point in life. How would I make it? I mean, I've had sight all of my life. And imagine if you go blind now.
Right.
I'm thinking, I couldn't learn Braille and all that stuff. But I've found through research that the technology is giving them new stuff to work with every day, which makes it a lot easier than learning how to be blind, like when Ray Charles had it, or when it happened to Lynn at age 23.
Right.
So I'm not quite as anxious about it now as I used to be, but the thought of not being able to see is horrifying.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, John, how about you in relationship to playing a character that have a scene in there with a blind person? What's your approach in terms of reaction? How characters react to each other?
Well, the thing about Lynn and Quentin, and people called Quentin Q, and Lynn refers to Quentin as Q in the play.
Which is good.
Yeah, it's they know each other, and Quentin doesn't look upon Lynn as this disability person. He sees this. Right. He sees the beauty of this soul.
Yeah.
And that's all he directs. His energy to is this guy's creativity, and he's so moved and touched by it. You asked your question to Charlotte about what excited her or what something what that surprised me. But I was going to say what unfolded to me, to Quentin when I was in rehearsals for this, is his passion, Quentin's passion. I mean, he was so passionate. That's what unfolded as we started our rehearsals. And I just let things go. I mean, I don't, I'm not planning on how I'm going to do something. When I get into rehearsal, as rehearsals build, I let things unfold. And as they started unfolding, I started seeing the passion that Quentin Drew had for what he believed in. He was so passionate about it. And it was on the tip of his thought. And he wanted to drive home to Lynn. This is what we have to do. And, and that's what really kind of excited me and drove me to another level of Quentin Drew, was his passion of how he really felt about the Watts community, and his admiration for Lynn Manning, and how Lynn Manning, he felt, could really be the voice in the community and uplift it.
I see what you did there.
Great segue.
Okay, look, let's segue into, I'm going to play a little short clip of Lynn talking about the founding of the Watts Village Theater, and then we're going to move right into, at the end of this audio clip, into that particular scene.
The Watts Village Theater Company is it's been a passion of mine. As actually my late friend Quentin Drew, I really came to know him through a production that we worked on together in Watts that was done as part of a Cornerstone Theater Company residency in Watts back in 1995. And they do, they take classic plays and have someone do an adaptation of that play that adapted to or for or around the community in which they're producing the work. So they were producing us at the WLCAC in Watts, and they wanted a play, a bridge play. This is like their culminating main event that would bring the communities, the Latino community and the African American community there together in this grand production.
Q, what do you know about this Cornerstone Theater Company?
I keep up with their work. They do a lot of good things in the community. Why do you ask?
They want me to adapt this play to fit what's happening in Watts, especially the Black and Latino community.
Sounds like something you can do. I hear that Cornerstone likes to leave something behind to create a creation of theater making in the community.
That there's a big need for a theater company in our community.
I agree. But you know what we really need?
What?
We need a strong voice from the community, from the village.
Q, what kind of village you talking about?
Watts. Watts is like a village. One big, beautiful community.
There's some beautiful people in Watts.
Yeah. Lynn, when I used to travel the world, there was always two places in the United States that we as black people were identified with. That was Harlem and Watts.
Harlem had a renaissance.
So did Watts.
Oh, yeah. I must have missed it.
It's happening right now.
In Watts?
That's right, in Watts. You are our Renaissance man, Lynn. You are our voice from the village. I used to think I was the one.
The one what?
Well, the one who would come back to Watts on a white horse and save the black people of Watts. Who am I fooling, huh? Shit, man. I heard you spit out that fiery poetry, that spoken word of prose. Cornerstone heard that voice, too.
Yes, gentlemen.
Great job, great job. That'll lead us into a discussion I want to get into now.
Jonathan brings out the best in me.
Two things I want to talk about. I want to talk about, in what order we want to go first. The state of black theater in Los Angeles and the need for a national black theater company. Which one you want to talk about first?
Ain't nobody listening, are they? Because I got some thoughts on
Yeah.
Go for it.
Which one you want to talk about first?
The National Black Theater, or what was the other one?
The status of black theater in Los Angeles, and then the need for a national black theater company. We want to talk about those two.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to hog it up. I'm going to do real quick. I would go further than the National Black Theater. I go to our entertainment as a whole. I can't understand why we keep creating great content and taking it to a filter to come out, which is controlled by, we don't have the control over it. And so we take our story and put it through somebody else's sieve, and it comes back, and it's not serving us. So we need our total black entertainment outlets for ourselves. Create our content that builds our community. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and I'm gonna stop it right there.
I couldn't agree more.
Don't put me out of SAG, y'all.
I couldn't agree more. What Quentin says in the play, for us, by us, about us, and near us, I think that is what is absolutely needed. In LA, yes, I feel like there's little theater for our community. There are stories that are by us, that are for us, that have us in the story. It's definitely very small percentage here in LA. And when you get to a national scale, oh my God. But the need it's essential. But like Marvin said, if we have these stories, we tell them, but then if we put them through a different filter, they're altered and they're not being translated to us to encourage us to continue that cycle, to uplift us. It just stops. And I'm going to stop there. But the need is...
We'll never work in this town again.
Well, there is a need, a big need, of course. I say of course, but there is a big need. And, it's so interesting. I remember several years ago, right here in Leimert Park, Bill White, Melvin Ishmael Johnson's partner.
My partner, huh? My producer
your
partner.
Producer partner.
Your producer.
And Bill's a director, and he directed this play. It was called Black Boys Who Considered Homicide When the Streets Were Too Much. And it was all in prose. And I did the play, and we did it in this theater over here in Leimert Park. And, it was such a beautiful piece. So well written by this black poet, playwright. And it didn't draw. I couldn't understand why people weren't coming out to see this beautiful material. And it was all male cast, and each character was expressing his story about a situation. And you spoke in prose, and you just got into it in the movement, and then, but the point I want to make is, like the other two actors right here, Charlotte and Marvin, the need in our community is so wide and so in need. And, it's so funny. You look at way back in Shakespeare's day, theater, he put theater there for the community. And it served the community. And theater is so powerful, and it's more powerful than film. It really is,
The multimedia.
It's just a whole nother medium, than film. And yet, it especially in our community, that it just has not, and I don't know what the answer is. I hear people speak and gives all these different flavors. So I don't know, but there is a need. And I think the more we do it, and it's so beautiful, Melvin, that you have taken this upon yourself to implement something like this, because you're doing it over and over and over and over. And
dedication.
Yeah,
dedication.
Dedication.
Yeah.
And I applaud you on it, and it's just, it has to you have to just keep it going.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Mel, can I say something on that point? Like you said, Quentin, Jonathan. It's sometimes it gets discouraging because like you said, you did a beautiful piece of theater, all male cast, exploring poetry, and I'm assuming the African American male experience, and then you don't get people to come, and you constantly do these shows, and it's like, oh, that's for some reason I feel like it's this ideology with the Black community that theater isn't for us yet, or maybe that I'm not really sure, but it's so hard to get people to come. It's like, me, I'm different. No one else in my family acts, but they've always been extremely supportive of my choice, and they do support me. But it's like, my cousins and everyone that don't have a theater junkie in their family, they're not going to go see a show, and it's like, how do you get the community to see that this is for them? This is how we evolve. This is how we get to another level, by showing us where we're at and where we can go when they don't come see it.
And Charlotte, go ahead. It's a mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. Number one, Shakespeare copied that theater in the round from some people in a huge continent. Okay.
Right.
Let's get that straight. They got that from us. We used to do that in the community. Okay. But the mindset has been shifted to believing that Shakespeare gets the credit, they get the credit. It's their thing.
Yeah, it's not for us.
Their thing.
Right.
It's our thing, which has been stolen, and we've got to steal it back.
Well,
okay, and like the drug dealers' marketing plan that I like to tout all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. They never charge you for the first few hits. They give it to you until you get hooked. Yeah. And we've got to do that.
Right.
Well, see, let me just touch on Shakespeare for a minute, because see, one of the things that made Shakespeare so important and what he did for the English language is tied into two other of his contemporaries, and that was King James and Sir Francis Bacon. And what they were able to do with their King James Version of the Bible is shape the whole English language. Now, what people going to find out later on, they're going to be surprised. Another individual that did it way before Shakespeare, but to see people think of theology when they think of him, and that was the Apostle Paul. See, the Apostle Paul, when they pick up the scripture, and they will always tell you the occupation of the Apostle Paul is he was a tent maker. Now, you pick up a book called The Ancient Loamy by C. Osmond Ward, and they explain you what Paul's occupation was. Paul was a stagecraft. He built, when they talk about tents, that was theaters. That's how he moved in the upper echelon of society. Yeah. But look, I want to get back to where I feel that it is the black actor who must step up and make this National Black Theater Company happen.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because it is that black actor that destroyed that National Black Theater Company. And see, it happened like this. A lot of people have never even heard of Theophilus Lewis. They know his name, but Theophilus Lewis started covering black plays during the 20s and all that kind of stuff. He, Chandler Orange and A. Philip Randolph had a magazine called The Messenger. And so they paid for Theophilus Lewis to go around and cover all of the black plays. And they did reviews in The Messenger because the big papers wouldn't cover black theater. And there was a lot of black theater happening, especially in all of your major communities and stuff like that.
Excuse me.
Now, what happened is that one of your early most important community theater companies in this country was called the Provincetown Players. That's where Eugene O'Neill come out of. Their founder was Jiggs Cooks, Jack Reed, and see Emma Goldman, Max Eastman. And what was the difference with all of these people? All these people is that they preferred the communal communist type of economic system as opposed to capitalism. And see what had happened, the Russian Revolution jumped off in 1917. Jack Reed, who was one of the founders of Provincetown Players, covered that in a book called 10 Days That Changed the World. Now, what you had at one time in the 30s, the United States had a national theater company called the Federal Theater Project. And they had ethnic theater, Negro theater, Yiddish. In all of your cities, actors got paid, directors got paid. Your outstanding people like John Houseman, John Huston, Orson Welles, all that's their background coming out of that. But what happened? When the United States destroyed the Federal Theater Project, right, the Provincetown Players under Eugene O'Neill, Robert Edmund Jones, and Kenny McGowan, they developed the Provincetown Playwrights Theater. Kenny McGowan would come out here and start modern Hollywood. That's why you go on the campus of UCLA, they got a building called McGowan Hall. That's named after Kenny McGowan. But what happened to the Negro section when they tried to put it together? A conflict came on whether it should be based on the actors or the playwrights. Actors went their way. They continued to do the ministry and all that kind of stuff to make their money, and we haven't recovered since. So, and I think then it should have been played on the playwrights because that's the starting point.
Right.
They are the writers that start off writing about these stories. You don't have a
story, you can't act. Right.
Yeah. And we definitely need that national theater. And I'm talking about a real national theater company situated in the major cities and centralized, connected together.
So people can come out and see it. Absolutely.
Okay, so we're moving around. Any final comments? We still got about 7 or 8 minutes to go on this.
For us, by quick. Us, with us.
Yeah.
Come see us.
About us.
Come see us.
Come see us. Yeah.
Melvin has sent all of us this video on Lynn Manning, the show, and I was amazed. Because most of the times you see blind people, they're almost like a stereotype. It's like Ray Charles or Stevie Wonder. It's like, and not making fun at all, but this guy Lynn Manning, I wouldn't even know he would be blind. Just listening to him just standing there talking.
Right. Same with Maria, right?
And he has such a, he had a flavor about him that he wasn't hooked up into, he has to be this particular way. He looked this Maria too,
and playing that harmonica.
Oh man! It just was wonderful. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, I bumped into. I actually met Lynn through John Freeland Jr.
Yeah,
that's how I got him on the radio show. And then after that, for the next 5 or 6 years, I would always bump into him because he had an office on the same floor where the Roby was. So when I would work with the Roby, I would come, and the thing that always amazed me is, because I thought he was a genius then, because he would come to the elevator, and if I cough, he knew it. If I say one word before I could get it out, it's, what's happening, Melvin? And the other thing is the fact that he was so independent. He would go down the elevator together, getting in front of the LATC. He go his way, I go my way, and all that kind of stuff like that. And then when we was there doing the Magnificent Dunbar, and then I saw Lynn over sitting in the audience.
Your brilliant role.
So I walked over to Lynn, and I said, before I could say, "Hey, Lynn," he cut me off and said, "Oh, you do some acting too, huh?" Like that. But yeah, Lynn was amazing. And then when I started doing the research on the play and started reading his plays, his first play, Shoot, blew my mind. Because I love that play. I hope they get a chance to do that play one day. because I thought that was
We
such
are
a
they.
deep imaginative.
We are the they that
We
do.
are the they that we're
that
waiting
do it.
for.
Oh yeah, one day to do that.
Yeah.
True.
Let's go around for some closing comments on this. And my thought about today, and then that you can closing comments. I want people to know just as much about Quentin Drew as they do about Lynn Manning and the contribution he made in founding that Watts Village Theater Company.
Well, I'm glad you're saying that because not cutting in and interrupting, but yes, now that I've been working on the play, and reading as little as I have on Quentin Drew, and then seeing
the poetess
Felicia come in here and saying she was his dear friend, dear friend to Drew. Yeah, this guy was so. I'm like you, Melvin. I am so amazed. There's not information on this guy like there is on Lynn. I know Lynn, but this Quentin Drew character, he was such a beautiful thinker, a visionary in the highest sense, a deep thinker. He had a spirituality about him that it was highlighted, and he really believed in uplifting the Watts community.
Yes.
And bringing the African American and the Latino together in this community. And I'm like you. I really would like to hear. I'm glad you bringing Quentin Drew up as you have, but it could even be more so for me.
Yeah,
course.
Because I'm also finding out a lot of information about the person that took over. What's his name? Rodriguez? What was
Leo? No.
Avilas. Wow. I'm drawing a blank.
Because he seemed to be like this, one of those same type.
Guillermo Avilas Rodriguez. Guillermo.
Yeah. That took over when
he became the artistic director. Right.
Yeah.
And I've been in communication with him. I hope that he gets to come to the show. Yeah, because he cast me in, and that's when I first met Lynn. Before I encountered him with John. Yeah.
Okay.
Come see us. Come see us.
All right,
us.
come out.
Come soon.
Once again,
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
this coming Friday, February the 8th, 9th, and 10th, 2019. Friday and Saturday at 8, Sunday at 3 p.m. at the New American Theater, 1312 North Wilton Place, Hollywood, California, 90028. Voice from the Village. We hope we see you there. A special thanks to my in-studio guests. Very interesting discussion. Please listen to past shows of the Qumran Report by Googling in Qumran Report. Thank you for tuning in to the Qumran Report. And from your host, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, may the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. I leave you with the song that opens his show, Bob is Sang by Ron Allen.
But the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the digging body flavor. A poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the digging body flavor. The poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the digging body flavor. A poem could be safer, but the voice is really greater in the mix of time and the digging body flavor. Bobby sang the silent ear. Bobby sang at my silence. Bobby sang the black onyx of the tie-dye moccasins of Yoruba. Bobby sang the black jewel son of Cosby Morning.